Okay. Meeting's called to order. Okay, just for the matter of the record, we did have an executive session tonight from 6 o'clock to 6:42. We reviewed some personnel issues. With that said, for those who care to join us to stand for the national anthem and a moment of silence at the end, please do so.
We're singing
at this time.
We're singing.
Oh, I mean, let's. All right. Thank you very much. I was just seeing if everybody's paying attention. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. With that said, Caston's now going to sing the Pledge of Allegiance, or sing the Star Spangled Banner. Can we rewind the tapes and start over tonight? Come on, for a rough start. Woo! All right, gets better from here. Everybody, hang on tight. Going for a ride. All right, Terry, roll call, please.
Mrs. Fish.
Here.
Dr. Gatachu.
Here.
Mr. Gordon. Dr. Gursky.
Here.
Mr. Kirsch.
Here.
Mr. Reichard.
Here.
Dr. Iwasa.
Here.
Mrs. Edmeades. Mr. Huron.
Here. All right, thank you, Terry. Okay, the next order of business tonight is our meeting minutes from the March 24th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve said minutes?
I make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, tonight on board administrative announcements, we have the CSIU. Dr. Gatachu, anything to report tonight?
None. We didn't have any meetings since then. So next week is the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee?
Sure.
Mr. Kirsch, please.
There were two finance committee meetings that were rescheduled recently, but canceled due to scheduling conflicts of the members. However, we did go through a bond series refinance. So our bond series A of 2016 was refinanced on 3/30/2021. The auction was very successful again. PFM had projected about $185,000 in savings for the district. The actual result in savings was $445,436 over the length of the bond. So in total, refinancing the bond series of 2016 and bond series A of 2016 saved the district a grand total of $1,156,238 over the course of the bond.
That's just absolutely tremendous, especially in these times with everything else going on. That's just hats off again. I know we've talked about it in other settings, and it was in the newspaper, and deservedly so. Phenomenal news that the whole community should be shouting great on that one. So thank you for that. Outstanding. Is that it?
Yes.
I don't want to just
Nope, you're
kinda
good.
cut you short. Thank you. Dr. Katachi, is there anything tonight on curriculum?
Yes,
Good.
our meeting was rescheduled from last week to yesterday. We had an hour session and we discussed quite a few things. Dr. Bickhart will do a presentation next meeting on April 28th, right?
Or which one? He's on one tonight too.
Yeah, so he will discuss most of this in relatively deep, in depth. But part of the discussion was the change in instructional options that the bridge model would be almost eliminated and be modified a little bit. He will go into the deep. And also we discussed about curriculum planning that includes social emotional learning. Again, I would say that mention that as well. And they have a few other programs, including the establishment of a professional education committee, which focuses on teachers' education or educational advancement of the teacher. They said, I think more of the details will come up, so I'll let him describe.
He will have a presentation
Actually-
next week with our next meeting on the 28th with our future planning for, beginning to plan. Tonight it will be on summer programming.
Just as a
Okay, thank you for that. Oh, your name, you got a lot of stuff going on, don't you? Got the policy committee as well. We,
Policy committee also, we were not able to.
right,
We didn't have a meeting this session. It's next week.
more to report on that.
We do have some things on the agenda tonight for second reading.
Excellent. Okay, moving forward, next section is superintendent's report. Dr. Boyle, please. Turn it
Go
over.
there. Enrollment wise, we are looking at a total of 2,242 students in the district, including our pre-K students. Head Start and pre-K counts of 82 students there. We're holding steady for most part, but it is down from the previous year. The other parts of it is we are also have in our report on summer program or on the journey what COVID has been for the past year. We do have more information on how our bridge programs and our in-person and our cyber programs are changing from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So I'll let the principals talk about that. The next item you can see on the screen, we have some young ladies who have been taking part in what many of us women do, go to the hairdressers and get braiding and getting our hair done. This is called Books and Braids, and one of our primary school secretaries has been practicing this and doing this with these young ladies. They read a book to her while she does their hair, and they just get made to feel very special. It's relaxing, and it just is something that we're very pleased that Heather Brady has offered to do this in her own lunchtime, for that matter. And it's for first and second grade students who need a little TLC. So thank you, Mrs. Brady. And again, if you ever see these young ladies in the buildings, you're going to see their braided hair. You can tell them how beautiful they are.
Awesome.
Okay. Next area is, and I put it on, is the high school items for the end of the year so that we can see what's happening. So this is tomorrow. There are parent-teacher conferences. If there's parents out there that haven't realized this, please call into the school and make arrangements to talk to your teachers, your students, just to get an update. The teachers will be there and be glad to talk to you about how things are going. We also have several exams coming up. NOCTI, which is our ag program, the AP exams, the Keystones, the all kinds of finals. So there's all kinds of exams coming up for the kids. So if they say they're tired, they probably are. Prom is on May 8th. We also will have Ag Safety Day on May 12th. On May 16th, it's Baccalaureate. And then we have the Wind Ensemble Chamber Choir coming up on the 18th of May, concert choir on the 19th. You can see how busy many of our students are, because on this list, I don't have anything to do with athletics. It's all the other things that, outside of the athletics. Also, valediction is on the 27th of May, and on the 4th of June is graduation. So that I believe there's some small, Terry, did you put some of those out on the side table? Yes. There's some of the schedule out on the side table if anybody wants to pick it up to see what's happening. Right, next there's some things happening at Liberty Valley. It's interesting. Also, I put a little note in there about the PSSAs that'll be happening at Liberty Valley in the middle school coming next week. So please remember to make sure your students get plenty of rest and are ready to come to school and face those wonderful exams. You'll see some pictures there of the food, and I'll talk about the Geisinger program a little bit later in the agenda, but you'll also see our students in Connects. Mr. Gump, would you want to tell us about your STEM Connects students and how wonderful they performed? That one, that's all right either.
Just hold it down.
Which is going to help you.
Work the room with that one.
Yeah, work the room. Okay. Well, thanks so much. We're very excited to announce that our Liberty Valley students pretty much swept the Connect STEM Design Challenge. And we had 3 teams. So we'll start with our third place. They were a 4th grade team of Sophie Meadows, Jovi Keller, and Allison Reedy. They created a portable fan, so they came in 3rd. Our 2nd place team were from the 5th grade. They came up with a water-powered windmill. That was Hannah Merrill, Zara Malikapour, Bryn Wilson, and Ava Medico. And our 1st place project was the Ultra Fridge. It was a pretty cool design where some excess energy from the fridge was able to power some other things in the kitchen. So our winners, our 1st place winners, were Henry Kotner, Henry Naylor, Manjal Mehta, and Arav Patel. So we're really excited about their accomplishments. And Mrs. Byers, our gifted teacher, she was the one who helped them through that project. So Dr. Boyle, thanks for letting me share those winners with us. Thanks.
Gladly. I'm
Wow,
proud
that's
of
awesome.
them.
That's
Yeah.
fun. That's really
And then, of
fun.
course, I had to do a little bit of our dog, our wonderful therapy dog, Pouncy, is wearing his mask, so everything is well at Liberty Valley. Another item for Liberty Valley is that we had donations from Giant, and that included alcohol wipes, hand soap bottles, hand sanitizer wipes, hand sanitizer bottles, adult and youth masks. So they graciously gave us things to help with our COVID attack in the building. So thank you, Giant. Again, they have done some nice things for the district recently. They also had done a $5,000 check a few months ago for the food service, which we had talked about before, but I just think they deserve the credit. Additionally, we have a donation from the Foundation of Columbia Montour Chamber of Commerce. We had $625 additional funds from their EITC funding, and we will be using that towards the STEM program that we send students to at Bloomsburg University. And then additionally, they gave a $100 scholarship for a student who would qualify under school counts. A couple other recognitions for students. We had Brenna Ross was named the Press Enterprises Girls Swimming MVP. There was an article in the April 12th, very nice article actually, in the April 12th edition of the paper. So if you're interested, that'd be worth reading. Also, boys basketball all-stars came out, I think, yesterday. First team from Danville is Jagger Dressler and Dante Harward, who are both seniors. Second team, KJ Riley, and he's also a senior. And honorable mentions were Zach Gordon and Aiden Wicker. So congratulations to those boys and their parents. And the last is our COVID update as to what's happening in our area. The level of transmission there were 32 positive cases last week ending on the 9th. And in the past 7 days, there was an average of 4.4 new cases. In the Northumberland County, there were 126 cases in that week. And over the past 7 days, they're averaging 25 new cases a day. So that's where we're at with that. I just want to do a quick reminder of parents. If your child is getting a COVID test, please keep them home until you have the results of the test. We've had incidents where we've had students who were sent to school, although they still had not known exactly what their test result was. Luckily, they've been negative, but we don't want that assumption. We want the students to stay home until they're sure of that. And with the previous slide, we right now have one adult who has been identified with COVID. We have no students who have a positive case in COVID.
What percentage of our teachers have been vaccinated? Is that something we have?
I don't have that. That's medical information. I know a great number have gone. I haven't asked for the details, but many have reported going. So I think it's a substantial number.
Okay.
So the last piece is Mr. Johns. We're going to be showing the results of the student athletic surveys. They were surveyed regarding their seasons in the fall and winter.
Yep, and I'm just going to give a brief overview, and I have several slides here. I'm not going to read them word for word because you'll see that there are a lot of words on here, but I want to give you a synopsis and an overview. As an athletic and extracurricular committee, we've talked a lot about how do we get more feedback? How do we get more feedback other than just what I see or what Mr. Wynn sees or Mr. Snover sees of our coaches? So what we did is we worked and we developed a survey where we surveyed most recently all of our fall athletes who completed a fall season and all of our winter athletes who completed a winter season. And they received this survey through through their student Gmail accounts. This is just a little bit of background. Of course, I do pre-postseason meetings, offer them to our coaches if they would like to sit down, go over their goals, expectations, how's the season going to play out. We do health and safety meetings with our trainers. It was especially important this year because we, of course, had to do a lot of different things that we haven't had to do in the past. What we think one of the areas of improvement that we wanted to expand was to get more feedback from our students, and this is a way that we figured we could do it in an anonymous manner. So these surveys that we sent out to our student athletes, they did not have to respond with their name. Some did, some did not. We just asked what grade they were in, what sport they were associated with, and who their coach was during that given season. We had two different types of questions that we asked in this survey. There's 3 sections that we asked specific types of questions and broken down into 3 areas. And they're also very similar that if you've ever seen our teacher evaluation forms, they're very similar, and it was based upon the format that we also evaluate our instructors. First section, practice planning teaching. The second session, contest or game management. And the third section, character development mentorship. And then you'll see we'll get to the end here. There's some really interesting open-ended questions that we allowed our kids to respond to in their own words. A couple examples of some of the questions in section 1, which was our practice planning teaching section. You can see we asked the students to rate on a 4, 3, 2, 1 scale. Do they strongly agree with these? Do they agree? Do they disagree? Do they strongly disagree? And those are just some of the sample questions. I didn't include all of them because I didn't want to put the whole entire survey out, but I wanted you to have some idea about these are some of the things that we asked. Motivational strategies, self-control and poise in the moment, planning for a practice, planning for contests, planning for seasons. Some more examples of contest or game management. We talked about scouting reports, planning for games, strategies within games and contests, appropriate behavior during the game, on sidelines. How are we behaving? How are we talking to officials? How are we handling the student athletes during a contest? And some examples of leadership, really character development mentorship for our head coaches and our programs. Is this someone who our players and athletes feel comfortable talking to? Do they set realistic, challenging goals? Do they stress the importance, of course, of academics and grades? We talk a lot about that, and that's a question that we asked our students. And again, without getting into specific responses, because again, I gathered the responses on everybody who responded. They were overwhelmingly positive. Most people either strongly agreed or agreed on a lot of these things with our coaches, and that was a really positive and reaffirming thing to hear back, because a lot of times you only hear the complaints and you only hear the worst case scenarios on coaches and players when things don't happen. And I think this was a really tangible way to kind of break down some of this information and get it straight from the people who see our coaches and interact with them every day. The next several slides are just examples of open-ended questions. We gave our kids some opportunity to answer these questions. What was the best thing about playing for this coach? Again, these are just several examples that come exactly from the words of our kids, exactly as they type them. I copied and pasted several things. Again, the overwhelming response to our coaches was positive. We asked them, again, what is one thing you would like to see this coach change? And we put things out there for them. And we got some real answers from some of our students, everything down to what does practice look like? I want them to push me harder. I'd like them to be a little easier on me. Believe it or not, there was a real, variety of answers. And we also got one like the last one, absolutely nothing. They definitely know what they're doing. And again, that was reaffirming to hear that from a lot of our students. Another example, I thought this was really powerful when you read these. What message would you like to share with your coach about this season? And so many of our responses that we got from our kids included the word thank you. Thank you for coaching. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting the time in. It's hard for kids to really say that, I think, to an adult in any given situation, but given some time to step back, have a little time to process the season and what happened, I think our kids are really appreciative of what our coaches do and what we provide in opportunities. Again, you see mostly thank you. Thank you, keeping me motivated. We're coming in during a hard time, handling a difficult situation, because this year was a really difficult situation and continues to be for a lot of our coaches and programs. This open-ended response asked about what is the most lasting memory you take away from your season. And most of the responses that we got from our kids, honestly, didn't all have to do with wins and losses. You know, we love to win. It's fun when you win, when you get championships, when you play in big games. But most of them are things like spending time with my friends, the funny moments, riding to and from the buses on the games, the team bonding. It's the things and it's the relationships and the experiences that I think a lot of our kids got that came out in this. And it was really, super interesting to read their words, that it really wasn't all focused on the wins and losses. It was focused a lot on experiences. Of course, fourth quarter of the district championship game, we have won a couple district championships. So there is some moments that cross over there. But as you see, it's also about the experience in taking all of that in. We thought this was an interesting question we developed. If you've played the sport for multiple seasons, which season was most memorable and why? And we thought that was pretty interesting and a question for us to ask right now, because I think in some of the conversations I had with our board president, Mr. Huron, I think we have 6 or 7 new head coaches just
Seven.
this year.
Yeah,
Seven new head coaches, everything from girls tennis to girls soccer to boys and girls basketball to wrestling. Gosh, I can't keep track of them all. So we wanted to get an idea from our students compared to your experience you had before and your experience you had now. How has it worked out for you? And again, these are just some sample responses. You'll see some say this one because of the coaching situation, or this season was most memorable because of our achievements, the atmosphere with a new coach. So we talk a lot about sometimes how hard it is to make hard decisions when you have to make change and you have to do certain things. But I think there's some validation here in some of the responses and some of the things that we're hearing back from our student athletes. And I think that's the last slide. So I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to see this project that we were doing. You hear Dr. Boyle talk a lot about data. We want to have data. We want to have information to make decisions and to be able to move forward. I'm in the process of breaking down all of the survey information so I can specifically give, say, girls soccer, the specific responses, and boys soccer and boys basketball. So it's just a matter of breaking it down and giving it to that specific person so we can sit down then and have real conversations, as opposed to saying, yeah, we won some, yeah, we lost some. But I think this opportunity and this thing that we're developing, I think is going to get a lot more information for us, and has really been a project that I feel proud of that we're able to develop. And I think it's really going to help our programs out.
Yeah, I think this is outstanding. I liken it to a term that's used a lot called the voice of the customer. And when you allow an opportunity for the individuals in a non-pressure environment to speak openly, especially when you have some of the subjective ones that aren't just A, B, C, or that, I think that's healthy. So if I understand the approach we're using, this is kind of like a phase 1 kind of introductory approach to this. We're going to do this as part of our normal protocols.
That's the plan, to make it part of our postseason, so that kids know I am going to have an opportunity to come in. Because there's so many times kids have said to me, I really want to come in and tell you something. I really want to come in and spend time talking about it. Well, between myself and Mr. Wynn and Mr. Varholic, there's only 3 of us, and we have hundreds of athletes. So I feel like this gives an opportunity for them to be heard. And if we start to see patterns of responses and we start to see things that are coming back, both good and bad, it helps us to be able to say to a coach or a program, here's what your student athletes are saying at the end of a season. Here's what they might otherwise not be able to share. And like I said, the majority of this is positive. There are some things that are constructive criticism that, has come back on this, and it's good to hear it that way. So yes, it is going to be part of our regular evaluation process, and be something that we do on a regular basis to gather feedback, to provide it back to coaches, to help them improve or to validate the things that they really do well.
Awesome. I do have 2 more points. One was, so are we entertaining the idea of maybe rolling this concept out to other things, like other activities like band, forensics, some of those other things, so we can get that vibrant kind of from top to bottom, middle, everybody's got an opportunity to weigh in, and then we can kind of see if there's obviously accentuating the positives is always fun to do, but there's other times you kind of have to look at things and go, what's going on there? We got to look a little closer.
Yep, I think that's the plan. We wanted to start with teams, because we know easily who is on a team. Maybe the next step, like you said, is for band and forensics and some of our bigger extracurricular programs that can provide the same level of feedback. And again, positive feedback for coaches that don't always hear it.
Right. And I had one more that written down when you were going through this. So this is for fall and winter, right? So we had 7 new head coaches in fall and winter.
I
went
think I
through
may
them.
have included spring too.
Or
I think.
spring. Yeah. Well, regardless, but so if you had to take all that you've seen and experience, especially in this challenging year of COVID, like a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being like awful and find someone else to do this stuff, versus 10, we're in a really good place to rate the condition, the health, if you will, of our sports programs in Danville. What would you tell me?
I would say,
Put you on the spot, but that's all right. You can handle it.
I would say 8 to 9. I think we're really have a lot of positive environments and a lot of great opportunities for our students. And I'm saying that
8 or 9?
8 to 9, yeah.
Good.
And I'm saying that in a season where we've literally been delayed at times. We've had to stop for 3 weeks at times. We've had seasons stopped. We've had to cancel games literally hours beforehand. But I feel like where we are right now and some of the things that we've gone through, we're really in a good place. And this only served to validate some of those feelings and some of that information.
That's fantastic. All right, great. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else got thoughts?
I
Right.
do. Mr. Johns, it's Jen Gursky.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, so I want to speak to a couple of things. As a member of the athletic committee, as you said at the start of this, we've been talking about the importance and the need to hear from everybody who's involved. Sometimes as an athletic committee, we hear from parents who are happy, parents who are unhappy. As the athletic director, you hear directly from coaches in your interactions, and you're observing times, sometimes large amounts of time at different, attending multiple games, depending on how many games the sport's playing. The one piece that you brought out that was definitely missing is how the child's experience is in the athletics at Danville. I think Mr. Huron said it best, that this should really permeate across all of our athletics, but also our activities, co-curricular, extracurricular activities, so that we're looking at band, we're looking at other things. The most important thing to me as an athletic committee member is the experience that our children leave with when they leave this district, and when they leave athletics, and when they leave their co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Some highlights that I just want to be sure that I heard is that we had 7 new head coaches this year. So when we thought about as a committee the need for the survey, the need was never greater to have that happen and see the experience of the children than it is now, because a lot of those changes were made based on what feelings and things were happening with children. Hearing from you that students felt that there was not just planning that was going on, that was in preparation that helped to serve the children, but the treatment of the children, the atmosphere of the practices, the atmosphere of the competition, and how the coaches represented themselves and made the children feel about their seasons in probably and arguably the most challenging year we will ever face in athletics because of the pandemic is huge. It can't be understated at all. And your work on this is outstanding. I just want to say that hearing that children walked away with peer-to-peer interactions, peer-to-mentor interactions, and all of those things really sitting in a positive realm with 7 new coaches, kudos to the administration for the hires that you guys have made. I feel really proud to be a part of this district and to know that my children are part of this athletic program. Thank you, Mr. Johns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. All right, anybody else? All right, fantastic. Keep it going. All right, next order of business tonight is our public comment period number 1. We do have 2 of those in every meeting, and we've had those for quite a long time. And this first one is focused on agenda items only. So I kindly ask for those that do want to make a public comment, please do so with that in mind. If you have other comments you'd like to share in, you're welcome to share them. We'd like to hear them, but that's for the one at the latter part of this meeting. So with that said, I look to the audience here. Any hands for public comments inside the room? Usually this is when people go. All right, nobody in the room. Jeff, is there anybody out there in virtual land that has raised their hand for public comment?
Please raise your hand for public comment in Zoom. No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to next order of business, which is our financial plan for COVID, and that will turn over to Bobby.
Yes. Hi.
Hello.
So Jeff is going to pull up my presentation. It is. So I just want to take a few minutes tonight and talk about the funds we've received from federal government for COVID, how we use them, how we are using them, and how we will be using them going forward. Okay, that's a little small for everyone to see, but we received 2 grants from PCCD, which is the PA Commission on Crime and Delinquency. One grant was $212,465, and the other grant was $71,256. We also received currently applied and approved ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds from the PA Department of Education. The total amount of those two equal $2,096,190. We do have ESSER 3, which has not been applied for yet, but we know our allocation, which you'll see later in the presentation. We also received GEAR money, Governor's Emergency Education Relief Funds, which is specifically used for special education compensatory services, and that was only $19,543. So as you can imagine, we'll have to use some of the ESSER 3 money as well for special education. But so far, total of applied and received or applied and approved is almost $2.4 million. On the bottom, you can see I did a little chart of the different agencies that gave the funds, and then supplement versus supplant. So it's important to note, if we are supplanting, that means we've already had it in the budget, and we're allowed to use these funds to offset some of those expenditures. So an example would be, we had technology Chromebooks in the budget, but ESSER 2 funds were allowed to be used for that. So we were able to capture those funds using ESSER 2 and pay for it out of ESSER 2, freeing up the local and state money to pay for other items that have increased, such as cyber charter schools. So that's what supplant means. Supplement is where we couldn't, like PCCD grants, you're not allowed to supplant at all. So you have to supplement. So it's over and above what you had budgeted, and it's not something that's ongoing. Okay, so here's the breakdown of what each one of them purchased, or what we have budgeted. So PCCD, the first one was $212,000. Out of that, it's completed. We purchased Chromebooks and Chromebook carts, cleared for school app, maintenance, cleaning equipment, PPE, cleansers, sanitizers, cleaning supplies, signage, classroom, and student supplies. So I want to note that $49,000 in classroom or student supplies is so we didn't have to share supplies for students, especially in the beginning with COVID. Some of that is also playground equipment, so we didn't have to share or wipe down so many equipment, so it's important. And thermometers. So all of that was really used for PPE, emergency stuff we needed to start back to school, COVID related items. And then the second one, the $71,256, again, we purchased Chromebooks out of that. And then ESSER 1 was $385,000, the budget's approved. And out of that, we paid for the first year of our new intervention specialist out of those funds, and a custodian, or a new custodian out of those funds, both for the mental health of the students and then also for the cleaning, obviously, of the buildings. Chromebooks and Chromebook covers, and then we purchased telecommunication items, security, high-speed data, secure email, internet connections for students. That all came out of those funds. ESSER 2, which we are currently spending, is 1.7 million, and that is going to be used or is being used for the Danville Ironman Academy instruction and teachers of records, social and emotional learning, intervention specialists, psychologists, counselors, and nursing. The item that falls under the allowable cost is provides staff and students mental health services and support and continuity of services, and to continue to employ existing staff. So if you look at this, ESSER2 pretty much was we used for supplanting our budget. We needed to use that because, again, I hate to say it, charter cyber school went up $735,000 from last year to this year, unbudgeted. So we really had to use these funds to supplant. We also received decreased revenue in interest income and earned income tax revenue. So we had to make up for that with these federal funds, and these are allowable expenses. And then the special education money, the $19,000 is for assessment materials, professional development, salary and benefits for compensatory instruction, and technology needs. So I explained this a little bit. I won't read it word for word, but it gives dollar amounts to what I've been saying about tuition for cyber school, increasing earned income tax, interest income. Our basic ed and special ed funding has been flat funded the last 2 years. And then, oh yeah, a note is outside cyber school is not an allowable expense under ESSER. So I can't just pay for cyber school tuition out of ESSER. I have to pay salary and benefits, which free up the local and state money for cyber school. All right, pros and cons. So when determining what to use the money for, it's actually extremely complicated. So if I want to do salary and benefits out of ESSER, I have to remember that it's federally funded. So we're not going to get 50% of our FICA back. So if I pay salary and benefits from local and state funding, we get 50% of our revenue, or 50% reimbursement on our FICA expense. So if I use federal funding, they're already funding that FICA, so they're not going to pay us 50% on top of funding the thing. So we are actually losing money by doing salary and benefits out of COVID money, the ESSER money. So we're playing this little bit of a game, and you can see the pros and cons, and I know that each board member has this and it's attached to the agenda online for you. And then the cons about purchasing equipment and supplies really comes down to the purchasing guidelines for federal equipment is extremely, extremely hard. There's bidding requirements. The old standard was to go to a cooperative purchasing agreement for the state called CoStars. That does not qualify for federal purchasing. So there's only a couple that do qualify, but then you also have to get notes from legal teams saying that they do adhere to all federal guidelines. So such as KPN and PEPM, they qualify. So what that means is on the state level, we're required to do sealed bids, anything over $21,300. Federal, it's like $250,000 for sealed bids. But we have to go with the more restrictive, which is state guidelines of $21,300, which is almost everything you buy for equipment. So to get sealed bids, or you can purchase off of one of the approved consortiums. So to get a sealed bid takes a lot of time to do, and you have to follow all federal guidelines when doing that. If you cannot use CoStars for those sealed bids because they don't qualify. And some things on PEPM, like fitness equipment's not on PEPM, but they're on CoStars. So you have to find fitness equipment somewhere else. And then just compliance is very difficult. It's not It's not easy to write the bid requirements for technology. Our technology does get purchased off of PEPM, so that's why all of that technology was approved through federal funds. The last one? Okay. So this is ESSER 3. This is the new funding that just came out. It's also called ARP, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, or ESSER. And it goes now until they got an extension. So this money can be used from 3/13 of 2020, which has passed, to 9/30 of 24. The amount is $3.4 million. There's a mandatory set aside of 20%, which is $692,154. That mandatory set aside has to be used for learning loss, and there is a definition of learning loss there that I copied and pasted from the guidance. And we are in the discussion on how to use that and what's best for the budget going forward, whether we do salary and benefits or look at supplanting some technology, special education, all of that we're looking at. But right now we are talking about the budget for summer school program out of ESSER 3. And we'll be doing this in detail later in Dr. Boyle's presentation. But the budget right now is $192,048 for the summer school, which includes teacher salary and related benefits, support staff salary and related benefits, materials, transportation, ESY, for that total. Do you guys have any questions?
General question on, so with all these funds and the opportunities that have been presented, we've been able to make ourselves whole, if you will, the term whole, with the whole evolution from where we started with the COVID and the things we invested in very proactively in the front end. And Jeff and his team put together that whole structure for the IT, and we were way ahead of the curve on all that. We were made whole.
Yeah.
If that's the right way to kind of throw
Yeah.
that term into that.
So a lot of the beginning funds were just used to get technology up and running and get the schools the cleaning supplies they needed, cleaning equipment, all of that. That's what the beginning funds were used for. And now we have to kind of make ourselves whole. And so ESSER 2 money makes ourselves whole for the 2021 school year. So we should be breaking even for the 2021 school year. So it only leaves ESSER 3 going forward. And again, if cyber school continues to rise or even maintains the same, there's no way we can afford that. So we would have to use some of ESSER money, say for salary and benefits, which free up local and state money for the cyber school tuition.
Okay, thank you.
And we're still, I guess this question is to you or to Ricky. We're still working on ways to bring some of those kids back.
Yes, next week, I believe, or next meeting, we'll be presenting the campaign that we are going to go out with to recapture those that are in cyber and outside situations, looking at some homeschool parents if they're still not interested in in-person learning. And we are going to do a full-out campaign to get people back, to explain to them what our Ironman Cyber Academy will look like, and so that they can see exactly what they would get with us.
Yeah, and just to remind taxpayers, cyber schools are not free.
No, and I don't care where the cyber school is, it's not free. But the difference is when we have a student that is in the Ironman Cyber Academy, it's about $4,000 per student right now. If it goes to an outside academy, it is somewhere between $12,000 and $22,000, depending on whether or not the student has special education needs.
Thank you.
And I also want to remind everyone, this is one-time funding. It goes away. We cannot count on this going forward. So when we're talking about revenue and taxes, this money goes away. We cannot count on this as our projection going forward.
Right. So if the cyber costs don't go down, we're going to have to make up for that in revenue or increased taxes.
Correct.
Is there part of our population that's making an argument that the cyber approach is better scholastically, or is it still founded? And if it can't be answered in this setting, I respect it, but is it being founded in the concerns with COVID and exposures and those kind of elements?
I haven't done any data on it. What we had done the data on was the comparison of the cyber programs to in-person learning and then to our program. And we do find that it is not as scholastically sound. Big issues with attendance, the
Interaction
outside
with
cybers,
each other.
but the outside cybers, sometimes they do some activity type things for kids that are local, but they really do not have the standards that we have in a Danville school district.
Right, I appreciate that because it's kind of a loaded question because I think a few meetings ago we had a very comprehensive presentation where data was presented to provide the community and others to take a hard look at that, to measure, what we're doing within the framework of this school district, what we have offered besides those interpersonal skills that to me are huge in the discussion. It still and fundamentally sounds like everything that I've learned through this process is that the education and the foundation of what we present in this school district far outweighs the cyber.
Right.
And maybe that's a little bit of a bias just from the way I've digested the data, but
I think there are a contingency of kids who do learn better in that model, but I don't think it's as many as what we have in cyber school right now. But I think the fact that we're offering our own is a way of saying we get that there are individuals out there for their lifestyle or for their families that works better, but we can offer you something that's more reflective of what our board has approved as a curriculum and what our instructors have had input into is a better service than what they're getting from those outside cyber.
Okay, because I guess the other part of that
Mrs.
argument is how many students are saying, "Oh, I don't like being in the classroom. I want to go do this cyber thing again."
No, I think that
Yeah.
I have students who really do thrive in that environment, and so it is a better environment for them. But if I can offer them a program where they're getting what's more reflective of what we do as a district, and it's a better education and it's a better service with better supports at a cheaper cost, then we should be doing that. And I did hear you, Jen. I'm sorry to have interrupted.
No, you're fine. I didn't mean to jump in. I just want to say, I'm going to echo what you're saying. As an educator who has been teaching and learning since 2001, I can say that the relationships that children form is really at the root of how they perform academically and social and emotionally. So when we talk about the expense is certainly astronomically different. But what is vastly different is the ability for local teachers who know your children and your families to build those relationships, and the impact of those relationships, that ripple effect of feeling connected, maintaining yourself in a community, and truly the teachers that Danville has working in these programs, they're outstanding. I would be hard pressed to find other educators that are out in a cyber charter school who have more of a desire to connect with those children than our educators do. So I just wanted to say that they're outstanding. And the cost savings is there. The programming is very high quality, but those people really make those children's experiences what they are.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, and I'll just with one last parting thought, since I'm sharing a lot of them tonight, is you see like the slide that Mr. Gunn puts up there, and you see those kids' faces. You can't get that without being with the peers in that environment, having fun. Like that's just to me such a critical part of youth. And I just when I see that, it just gives me this good feeling. And anyway, okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. So we're moving to the next order of business tonight, which is, oh, great. Dr. Boyle will take us on the journey, March
Yes.
2020 to March 2021.
Correct. From March 2020 to March 2021. Let's look at the Danville Area School District. We'll look from, next slide. We'll look from Head Start to high school, and each one of the administrators for those areas will be talking to you. One of the things that we were working on when March 12 of 2020 happened was the comprehensive plan. So what we had done, and this is now completed and approved by the state, but we worked very diligently to say what is really the mission and the vision of this school district. And it included not only teachers and administrators, board members, but stakeholders in the community, business owners, some of the paraprofessionals, some of the parents. So we had a really collective group that were contributing. The mission I want to read says the Danville Area School District, a partnership of family, school, and community, is committed to the education and growth of the whole individual. Our vision statement of what we're looking towards is the Danville Area School District is a collaborative learning community where students have the opportunity to reach their individual potential. Our commitment resides in molding a resilient, effective communicator who has the requisite skills to be a successful citizen in an ever-changing world. And so with those things in mind, we're always making decisions. Now, if you look at my roads, on March 11th, 2020, I was hired as the school superintendent. I had been serving for a year, actually, prior to that as the acting superintendent. So I thought things were going to go pretty much like they had been, kind of a straight path, understanding of what was happening and how we had to do it. But that's not what happened. I bumped over to another road. On March 12th, I'm faced with, which is the day after I'm hired, or the first day I'm really the superintendent, I'm faced with the fact that COVID has hit. And there is discussions about having to, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? Administratively, we all met together. I talked to some of the doctors at Geisinger. I talked to some other people as well and discussed what the big concerns were at that time, because we didn't know what this pandemic was. We didn't know how we were going to handle it, and it just looked like life was going to end the way we knew it. So in that situation, during our conversation on the 12th, we decided we want to be prepared. We sent home computers, packets, everything we could think of for the students for the next 2 weeks, because this was going to take about 2 weeks. And we then said, school's closed until. And then, of course, about an hour after we made that decision, the governor made the same decision that school's closed. So we were, again, proactive in making sure we had everything ready, and our students went home with everything they needed that day. So we've got to remember, though, there were a lot of work that happened after that. One of the things that the state came out and said, okay, school's disruptive, but you've got to make up a continuity of instruction. So we had to figure out how we would be instructing these students when we had never really had virtual classrooms for our teachers. We had never worked through these things. So we took a week, we trained our teachers, and we got them ready to do Google Classroom with some videos, some direct connections, some posting some things online for the kids and working it out to the best of our ability. And I have to tell you, our teachers were 100% on board that they wanted to educate the children. And they did work on their own time. And, even though they were at home, we got emails, we had connections, we had phone calls. We ended up having Google Meets with teachers. So we knew that they were diligently working so that they could educate the children. Once we got a pattern going with that, then it was like, okay, how are we going to reopen schools? So now we're looking at health and safety plans, not only for the school building, but for athletics as well. How can we create something that is going to take care of the children, not only educationally, but their health and their safety in mind? We wrote that. Our document is 38 pages of intensive information as to how we were going to cover everything from cleaning to classrooms to lunches to everything that's involved in a school. We were involved in that. In that, we then came out with the 3 instructional models that you're familiar with now. The in-person, the bridge model, which we've always intended it to be a bridge to get us over the pandemic. It's a pretty long bridge, but it's still working. And then, of course, we created the Ironman Cyber Academy. We had already had programming for 6 to 12. We made it from K to 12 so that parents could then access school on a cyber that would make them more comfortable than sending their child into the building. We did a great deal of professional development, and if you could jump to that area on the website, I'd appreciate it. There we go. We have, this is one of the pages, and we have an intensive amount of professional development that teachers can do on their own time, or on, we gave them some time at the beginning of the year. But as you see, Paul Breon, Jeff, Rich, John Bickhart all work together to provide all these different areas for our teachers to be very capable in providing education online, both synchronously and asynchronously. Just, it goes on and on today. In fact, I got a text from one of the other superintendents today. They would like to be able to tap into what we've done. And of course, we'll work with the other districts as well and help them see what we've done. You know, we've created the wheel. There's no reason we can't share it. One of the things I do want to say is our technology advancement is, you know, very, very impressive. What we've done with things, and what happens with our team is we're always evaluating. We're never sitting back and saying, oh, we got it done, we're good. We're always saying, okay, what's the next thing? Or the teacher said we're having problems with grading it. We have to print everything, grade it, then upload it and send it back to the students. Well, guess what? Mr. Ryan and his team came up with a tablet that the teachers can access what the student sends in, do all the notes and grading right on this tablet, which is a, you know, an electronic device, and then send it back to the student, never having to print anything. And that's what was happening, is every time somebody would think of something that wasn't working as well as they'd like, the team would go to work. What do we do? How do we do it? What professional development can we provide? So that has been critical in our success this year. The last thing I want to really say is our school board. Our school board has been a supportive and understanding, and have listened to the issues that we're dealing with, have come in with suggestions for us, have cooperated when we needed something. And we moved it to, in December of 2019, when it was reorganization, this school board turned in and said, okay, we're going to do it twice a month. So we had 2 meetings a month. On top of that, we have had committee meetings for all the various committees, which wasn't something that was happening regularly. Please understand that every meeting this school board has is open to the public. It is advertised, with the exception of executive session, as is the law for Sunshine Act. But we had, since December of 2019, we've had 33 school board meetings. That included a couple of special meetings. And we've had 38 committee meetings, again, all of which were public meetings, opportunity for people to participate. And these things are advertised on our website and have been advertised in the newspapers. So a big thank you to the school board as well for everything they've done. At this point now, it's Head Start's turn. So Mrs. Linda Marshall is going to give us a little synopsis of what's happening with our littlest ones.
Real quick, do you think that road's going to straighten out anytime soon? That's right.
I'm not looking for it. I'm used to the curves.
Woohoo. Good thing I'm wearing my seatbelt. Sorry about that.
But that's okay. In Head Start, we started in the fall with 81.
Is that on? Chris, is that on?
Full enrollment at Head Start and pre-K counts is 121 kids total. Due to the pandemic, we were able to have flexibility in enrollment. So we started out with 10 children in each classroom so that we could social distance and keep everyone as safe and healthy as possible. So our full enrollment started at 81, and that was 66 in person and 15 virtual. Today we are at 84 with 72 in person and 12 virtual. Next slide. So this is some of our highlights. We have 52 children transitioning to the Danville Area School District this year. One thing with the pandemic, you always try to find the positive. And as Dr. Boyle mentioned, we increased our professional development, which was really a great time to really get some extra teaching, some extra professional development for everybody. We had virtual meetings with our mental health consultant, Dr. Heather Hoover, worked with our staff, with our students, and also with our parents. We really noticed our parents throughout the school year were really struggling in parenting because the kids were home a lot, and also just financially and just really stressed. So she really worked with us to have monthly parent meetings and support groups, and also met with our teaching staff on a monthly basis. The graph shows kind of where our kids are. This is the percent of children who are meeting expectations. The light color is in the fall, and then the dark blue color is in the winter, and then we also do that again in the spring. Just like to see where our kids are. The data is analyzed as a whole program. This is the whole program. It's also analyzed at a classroom level and then also individually. Next slide. This is kind of some data on distance learning. Everyone asks, how do you do virtual teaching in preschool? And I honestly asked myself the same question until we got started, and we really became, the parents and the teachers became a team. And you can see the growth. We were not sure what this graph was going to look like. And the growth that we had in virtual learning, we were very proud. We worked very hard with the families. We sent home packets, and we sent home scissors and crayons, pencils, everything they need to do the activities, because a lot of our families do not have those sometimes at home. So the growth, you can see, that will be done also again in the spring.
All right. Mrs. Willoughby,
Excellent. Thank you for that.
the primary school principal.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight speak about the primary school. This is my first year running a building, and it's been quite the experience. So I thank all of you for your support, Dr. Boyle for your support, the admin team who helped guide me through this, and of course our community has been pretty amazing. So go ahead, Jeff. Thanks. So our enrollment in August, we started with quite a few in the bridge program, roughly 60, 72 children. And then in our cyber as well, we had quite a few. Over the course of the past month, we've seen upwards of 25 students come back from both the bridge program, the Ironman cyber program, and outside cyber and homeschool as well. So we are pleased with that. So right now we are at 161 in person in kindergarten. In first grade, we have, I need my glasses, 140, and in second, 154. So our numbers in the bridge and cyber programs have decreased. However, we are continuing to keep those children involved, and we're involving them as much as we can, both virtually, and if we can invite them to in-person events, we do so. So some of the things that we've been doing as a staff, we've been creating this committee of members to review multiple curricular options for social emotional learning, which has been, sorry, this mask is very,
Take it down.
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, we
It's
can hear
like
you
as
better.
I breathe. Excuse me. So we have been exploring many options for social emotional learning, which has been nice. But the things that we have in place currently are daily check-ins. We do lunch groups. The PBIS and Iron Kids, we have done multiple community projects. Mrs. Brady's Braids, Books and Braids has been another thing that we've just incorporated into the school day to promote school culture. We also, I just want to mention this, it isn't just for the in-school or in-person children. We do multiple groups for children online. We read books to them. We have special meetings with them. And again, we include them in any of the virtual assemblies that we do have. So past and upcoming events at DPS, we have done the virtual field trips, one being the elk farm, which was pretty amazing. They mailed us a box of things to show children, including elk antlers, a hide, all kinds of cool items. We participated in the Geisinger Kindness Project. And earlier in the year, we did the blacktop painting project, which was something that was ongoing from a prior year. So I inherited that, but it was awesome, and the kids love playing on it currently. So coming up, we have the fun run planned, which we do plan on including our bridge and cyber students, just making them a homeroom and having them come in at a specified time to join in the fun. We have an end of year celebration, which will include the second grade graduation celebration. And then through the month of May, we're going to have fun activities planned on Fridays.
It's Mr.
Excellent,
Gump.
thank you.
Mr. Gump from the Liberty Valley Intermediate School. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks again. On my slide here, I chose a couple of pictures to illustrate some of the things we're doing at Liberty Valley with the kids. One of which is Girls in the Run, which is on the left under the pavilion that you see there. So we have a bunch of teachers and paraprofessionals who are leading that up as advisors and working with girls every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. But the picture on the right is part of SEL, the social emotional learning going on. And so I just want to say thank you to the school board, administration, Ken Burkich. What's interesting about this picture is that's a new room that we have at Liberty Valley. We're running out of space out there. Ken and his crew put up a new room, and that's now the home of our intervention specialist, Mary Tiffin. So as a board, you allowed us to gain that full-time intervention specialist at Liberty Valley. And here we have a group of girls in this particular picture, but so many students are being positively affected because we have Mary Tiffin there with us every single day working with kids. This is just a guess, but I'm letting you know she's working intensively with, I would guess, around 100 students out of our 500, okay? But the reason that's important is because that then allows our school counselor, Michelle Lynch, to work with even more kids outside of that 100, okay? So Mrs. Tiffin is constantly running groups on stress relief, developing positive peer relationships, coping skills when they get really, angry, upset, stressed, like how do they do that? And she works with the kids and has just been amazing. So a lot of decisions were put into that decision a lot of decisions and from other people were put into Mary Tiffin being in that classroom with kids. So again, thank you, school board, administration, maintenance, and everyone who made that happen. So next slide, please, next slide. Okay, current enrollment in virtual education at Liberty Valley. So as you can see, we have our bridge up top and Ironman e-learning at the bottom. And I'm proud for a couple of reasons from the slide here. Number one, I'm proud because of the product that our teachers have provided in that virtual education. So for us to be able to have that this year, our numbers were large at the start. I would say they were large, and we did a fantastic job with that. But I'm also proud in that those numbers have really decreased. So you look at a third in the springtime of bridge students, only a third are still in that bridge program, meaning we've pulled those kids back into the classroom, and we love having them here in person. But again, we still have some out there that are getting a very high quality education in that realm. And then our Ironman e-learning, led up by Jess Adams. Fantastic numbers are decreasing a little bit, not as much as bridge, but that would be expected. So again, just a phenomenal job by our bridge teachers and our Ironman e-learning teacher, Mrs. Adams. Next slide. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this before, but the one focus, I mentioned this at the curriculum meeting yesterday evening, that we do have a strong, robust SEL committee at Liberty Valley formed right now, and we're currently really digging deep into one particular curriculum that we want to investigate a little bit more. John Bickhart is reaching out to that particular group, and we're getting more information on that. So we're really hoping to have something in place. We keep working together as a committee to have that in place to start the school year next year. And the one thing here, I think maybe it's going to be mentioned later, I'll just go to the bottom of the slide, and that is the Geisinger Appreciation Station project that we did. It's really a K through 12 thing being done right now, but we had a ball doing it at Liberty Valley as a way to say thanks to our local community for everything they're doing with the COVID response. I believe there's one more, just a few activities that we have done and we're going to continue to do. So we have a little thing called Forged and Fire Assemblies. We do 4 of those throughout the year. We'll continue those. We did the STEM sweep with Connects. You already heard about that. We've got a spelling bee coming up this spring. We already did our Harvest Festival, and really exciting stuff coming up. We have Celebrity Kickball coming up. So I'm one of those celebrities. Any school board member or superintendent who wants to play in that, just let me know. I'd say, yep, maybe Dr. Boyle can show up for it. We have that coming up too. So we're trying to
play.
Show up and play. That's
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yes.
Can I pitch?
Saying.
You could, yeah, we could do that. We'll fit you in. So we have that coming up next week. But again, it's just a way that we're trying to have some fun with the kids, doing it safely, of course, but having some fun with the kids in addition to everything they're doing in the classroom and through virtual means. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Gump. Okay,
Excellent. Thank you.
Miss Knoll?
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the middle school tonight. So as you can see, starting off, we have our data from our fall enrollment to our current enrollment here in the spring. So we're really, excited to see that our in-person numbers have gone up through each marking period. So that's been wonderful. As you can see, our bridge numbers went down about half, and our cyber numbers have stayed about average. So we're currently in, along with what Mrs. Willoughby and Mr. Lee said about forming our SEL committee, which involves stakeholders from all our departments, and we're collaborating on an age-appropriate curriculum to embed here in the future. So at the middle school on the daily level, similar to what we have at DPS and at Liberty Valley, we have check-ins, we have groups, and most recently, we are really excited. We have a kindness club, which was actually started by our students. So it's in the very beginning stages, but they've been doing some really neat things. So we need time for fun in this crazy year. So recently, our National Junior Honor Society sponsored a Spirit Week. We have had a Fun Friday activity. And most recently, this past Friday, Marcy Kicka, one of our PE teachers, had a dodgeball fundraiser for the American Heart Association. And she raised over $700. We had an egg hunt sponsored by our guidance department. And we also did some Valentine's Day activities back in February. So our sports and clubs are still going on. So as you can see, along with our sports, all of our extracurriculars are running as scheduled. Our drama club was able to put on a production of Little Women. Granted, they had to do it virtually, but they did a wonderful job. And we were so happy that we were able to continue these events. So some of the photos you can see there, we've got our art club going on, chess club, Odyssey of the Mind, Sea Perch, and Lego club. And along with the other programs we have going today, we just had our induction for the National Junior Honor Society. Our student council has been doing a lot of fun activities. They're actually overseeing our portion of the Geisinger snack collection. And our yearbook was able to meet their deadline, which during the COVID pandemic was quite the adventure. And like I said, this just kind of talks about some of our community connections that we've been doing. We're still continuing the bi-weekly lunch distribution from the middle school. And our student groups have been able to start to take their community-based trips again.
In fact, I think one went on a hiking trip today.
They did, yes. The group got to go out to PPNL today and they went fishing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
Mr. Vaharlik?
Hello, I was just kind of reminiscing on Dr. Boyle and Mrs. Willoughby saying about being the first year, which obviously I started in October, if you don't remember, and it was a bit of a ride since then. If you look at our enrollment numbers coming in, looking at from the fall to the spring, we have obviously 394 and then 409 in person. The bridge was 171 and then 151 here in the spring, and then cyber increased by 5 students. So I think one of the things that I'll highlight here on the next slide is the support that we're bringing into the students that are coming back, whether it's from cyber or from the bridge model. SEL committee worked together with to provide lessons for our within our social studies courses, but we also had basically we altered the schedule for a day and had a push in for all the students. So we had a lesson put together for every single 9 through 12 student. Within our 9th grade social studies courses, you'll see up there 3 lessons have been taught over the course of, I believe, the 2nd semester here for all the 9th grade students, which has been really, really good. Mr. Mays and some of the guidance counselors have put that together. Our freshman support committee, as I was talking about, one of the things we discussed this morning, even in those meetings, is basically the aspect of how are we supporting our students, not only 9th graders, but some of the other students, such as our bridge students that are coming back into the classroom and that sort of thing. So what are we doing to support them, and talking with teachers, counselors, and obviously the administrative team to be able to help them. Our SPM club basically had multiple different things to help support the students. A few weeks ago, they had the cornhole event to be able to raise money. Mrs. Morgan, who's here tonight, obviously was the advisor for that. And so the students are doing a really good job. And just seeing and hearing from those students is really awesome. Some of the things that just to celebrate in the fall, we had, this was kind of fun, Homecoming Spirit Week. This was, like I said, kind of back when I started, so I got to see some of the staff, and so there's some pictures there of not only students but also staff that got together and help, really make the week go as planned, but fun as well. And then PBIS student activities. One of the things that we did were pride cards and some of the things to support students, which was really cool. And then in February, it was the Valentine's Day week. We had things for the SEL and also for the school in general. So it was really cool. And then this month is Autism Awareness Month. And then again, one of the things they've been doing since even before, I guess this was a conversation before I was even here, was the PBIS Senior Early Out, which helped with numbers in the school and things like that, which was really good. I think students really appreciate that. Some of the sports and clubs, obviously, it's been Mr. John's doing just to really help support the sports and the clubs be able to participate, but also see those things through. And so I think it's been a real challenge, but I think a lot of the students, as you saw from his presentation, have really appreciated that, but also have grown, and the relationships and the things that have gone through there are really, really good. Some of the stuff that has come out of the sports seasons, multiple PHAC championships, district championships, and then from some of our individual sports with district, regional, and state qualifiers. It's just amazing to see the athletes just perform at such a high level within the district is awesome. And then down at the bottom, the drama, I don't know if you guys, obviously most of you probably saw the Puffs presentation, which was really cool, and just a great showing from Mr. Javi and his wife, and just to see that whole thing come about, it was really, really good. Some of the other programs and activities, NHS inductions were just happened last month. Mrs. Crick is involved with that. Yearbook once again finished, kind of near and dear to me. I was the yearbook advisor at Keystone School District, and Mrs. Kepler, I talked to her, and the students are really excited. They finished that a few weeks ago and was able to touch base with them. And then also the forensics team with Miss Ludwig, they've just been doing a lot of good things, and Dr. Boyle had highlighted that in the past year, so it's been really, really good job. And then finally, some of the community things that have come about since I've been here. One of the really cool things is talking to Mr. Grozier and some of the things that have been donated with Many Hands Helping Others. But then also, I was touch base with Dr. Boyle highlighted this a few weeks ago with parents that wanted to donate different products for students in need. So that was a really, really neat thing. And so some of the things that we've been doing with those products is putting them in classrooms and in the restrooms and things like that for students to be able to grab as they need. And so the students have really appreciated that, and the teachers, and I think have done a good job supporting those parents. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So does anyone have any questions so far? We've got another presentation to give you. So any questions on where we've been through this COVID year thus far?
I'd just like to say, you guys did a phenomenal job. And it's amazing how resilient not just the students are, but how resilient the admin team and the teachers have been and what they've provided our children. And when you go back to that mission statement and we talk about the whole individual, we saw the whole individual up there. And that's really, thank you. As a parent in the school district, I just want to say thank you.
It's awesome. And I just, you said it so well, Christine, like when you're involved with this wonderful team and you're in the midst of it, I had no idea until it gets summarized like that, how much is going on. All those little things, and you hear like different discussions about, what should it be doing and all that. If anybody doesn't appreciate what goes on in this school district, they're not paying attention. Because if they were, and they paid attention to what we just saw by everybody that owns this, sleeps on it, wakes on it, thinks about it, weekends, does it to make this place the magical place it is, they don't know what's going on. And what I just heard from everybody, I'm just honored to be part of this team. This is amazing when you summarize it like that and see all the wonderful things that this community has and it reflects. So thank you, everybody, for that. It's awesome. Okay. Turn it back over to you.
Yeah, summer
good at doing that.
programs. It says Dr. Bickhart, but I'm going to start it so we can keep it condensed.
Whoa! Can we?
Fired.
Do I have a motion to move Dr. Bickhart to do this part of the presentation?
Go ahead. You're all right. He asked me to start it, guys. All right. So, summer programming in the district. The rationale for the summer program is that as we plan for the 21-22 school year, meeting individual student needs and providing appropriate instructional supports is of the highest priority. Unfinished teaching and learning, increased economic hardship, and the trauma that has negatively impacted student learning, exacerbating existing achievement gaps and introducing new ones. We really want to address these, and that's why we're looking at our summer programming. We did a survey of the parents, and I had a total of 488 responded, 472 that completed it. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to try and go through these fairly quickly. This particular one had to do with the grades. So kindergarten is at the top and high school is at the bottom. And you can see it was fairly equal across. I mean, yes, there were more in kindergarten through 5th grade, but honestly, I thought I was pretty impressed with the number we had in middle school and high school as well. We asked the parents what time of day is going to be best for you to have your child participate. All day, mornings, and no preference. We're all pretty much equal. So it looks like, parents will work around whatever we schedule. I find it very interesting, but about 36% of them, or 176 parents, said that they wanted their child to be here all day. In addition to math or reading, because yes, even though our previous presentation showed all these things we're doing, we're also teaching content courses every day as well. So in addition to the math and reading, what activities would they be interested in? Now here we said you could pick more than one. So you can see there's significant numbers, but the highest number were some games and outdoor activities. I think what I'm hearing from parents and from teachers for that matter is the kids are going to be kids again. That's what's going to be really important. And there's so much they can learn by playing games together, by doing things outdoors. You know, we talk about taking that trip today and going fishing. That's an outdoor activity, but they had a lot of preparation. They had to do a lot of things. They had to deal with, you know, their emotions when they didn't get a fish or whatever. So there's a lot of good things that happen in that area. STEM is the other area that is definitely wanted. So we're looking at that as a significant piece of what we will be looking to do this summer. Overwhelmingly, yes, we had 349 not necessarily parent, but for students that are interested in coming to the summer programming. And then we asked them when, okay, June, early July, or July, early August. And the majority said June, early July. They like those dates. We gave them the dates of June 14th through July 8th, I think it is. It's in a later slide. So those dates look like they'll work out just as we had been talking. And then we said, how many days would you want your child to attend? We're planning programming for 4 days a week. And I'm talking about not, you know, they're talking 4 to 8 days total or 4 to 15 days total. The majority, almost half, said 4 to 15. And some of the others said that like they had vacations planned, so they would maybe have, you know, a different time frame. But basically the 2 week or 3 week item is what they mostly liked. We also asked about transportation. 306 individuals said no, they would not need it. 182 said yes, they would. If we provide transportation, it'll be at drop-off points. It will not be door to door. All right, we won't be picking kids up at their houses, but we will have just significant stops in the areas where most students would be. And then we also asked about the week-long camps in July or August. We're looking at having 2 week-long camps. So one, again, it's a little bit later, but one next to the last week and one the last week of July, because we are coming back a little bit earlier in August. So that August date was a little bit too late to pull it into August. I did the interest in the programming. You know, are you interested in kindergarten? We had 53 students who are interested in attending out of 63 who responded. First grade, we're looking at 52 students. Second, 43. Third, 39. Fourth, 41. Fifth, 29. Sixth, 29. 7th, 25, 8th, 20, and at the high school level, we're looking at 36 students. Now, these are the ones who responded. We're also going to be talking to teachers and finding out which students they feel should be targeted. We do have the names of every student who is included in this survey, so we can reach out to those parents as well. But we also know that there are probably students out there who would be, the summer program would be very beneficial, so we want to make sure those students are invited. Next are the dates. So June 14th through July 8th, Monday through Thursday. Of course, July 5th would be no program that day. And that would be kindergarten to 5th grade. We're looking from 9 to 2. And on 6 to 8, we're looking at the same days, but only from 9 to 12:30. And the week-long camp activity time would be July 19th through the 22nd, 9 till 12, and then the 26th to the 29th, that would cover 12 to 3. So we'd cover a morning group, and then there'd be an afternoon group so that parents could have a choice. This is something that is out of the ESSER funds. It is designed totally for learning loss, and these funds are absolutely required to be used for learning loss and nothing else. So it's not like we're taking money from the taxpayers or from the district budget. This is money that we got from ESSER's 3 or the ARP, is it? The ARP fund, because they said there's a 20% set aside that we must use. And we must use them for evidence-based programs, summer learning, summer enrichment, extended day in the school year, which could happen later in next school year, after school programs, and ESY, which is extended school year. The timeline, we can use these funds through September 2024. That was a change with new legislation. The interventions that we are planning are all academic, social, and emotional. And we are targeting students from low-income families with disability, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, students experiencing homelessness, foster care youth, but it is open to the students of Danville Area School District. It's just that we want to address those students with the greatest needs and make sure that they are aware of this program. And budget, do you want to talk a little bit, Mrs. Ely?
Sure. I kind of briefly went over it. So we, with the help of Dr. Bickert and Dr. Boyle, we created a simple budget looking at how many teachers we thought were needed based on the results of the survey, and estimated a cost per teacher and how many hours per day. So for the summer school alone, we're looking at $175,608. And then when you add ESY onto it, it's another $16,400 for a total of
$192,048.
Thank you. I couldn't see it.
It's kind of little. Sorry about that.
So we're estimating the teachers you can see in the column, maybe 4 kindergarten teachers. Of course, this is budgeted. Actual, we'll have to see how many students actually sign up. And then we also included transportation cost in there, high school credit recovery, which I don't think we spoke much about, the high school students, teachers for that, transportation, and paraprofessional support staff as well to be paid out of summer school.
And ESY is also federally required, correct?
Yeah, that's a special education program, so that has to do with their IEPs. Right, and we also have to consider some comp ed or compensatory education this summer because students who had IEPs had missed some of their schooling, so we have to make up for that as well. So here's some of our ideas. We're going to look at the data, the mid-year dibbles, the iReady scores, teacher recommendations are going to be considered, as well as their grades and curriculum-based assessments. Other things we're going to look at are their social development and their interest areas. Our ideas include academics in the elementary, the reading and math concentration, in the secondary, core content and extended course completion. Some of the high school teachers have requested to say these students are failing because of work they didn't complete or things they need to do. We would like to extend our course through this time so that these students can pass and get their credit for that particular course. We want hands-on activities. We want physical activities. Again, we're looking into some of the state parks and how they can help us. There is such a thing called Teachers in the Parks that I'm looking at as well, so that we have some, educational, interesting, and fun activities that have to do with nature. Again, games, teams, and then the humanities, art, music, and drama would be very important. Now I will turn it over to Dr. Bickert to explain how we'll be looking at data and how we compare it from before COVID, now COVID.
Thank you, Dr. Boyle. We'll start with, I guess, perspective is where we'll use here as we dive into this data. What we're going to talk about in each of these slides is January 2020 to January 2021. All right, so we're going to look at our grade levels and overall percentages based off of key data points that tell us where was the percentage of kids when we left in January 2020, right before this all happened, to where it is now. So example, here's math inside of DPS. Okay, there's a dozen slides we're going to go through here that you can take, you can digest as you move forward. What I want to point out as I have Jeff go through these here in a second, there are 2 ways to look at these. If you look at kindergarten, then down to first in the second slide, that's a cohort. So every one of these slides, as you would move from top to bottom, would allow you to go K to 1, 1 to 2. Now 2 to 3, you'd have to cross slides. But the idea is what we're trying to look at is the comparison for where kids were as one group to where they ended up the next year. The other thing you can look at is content, kindergarten to kindergarten. Where did we get, up into those points based off of where they ended last year? So you can dissect this data in a lot of ways. So, and again, we're going to show you a handful of slides here that go K to 8. So that's how you can look at the data. But I'm going to give you the quick summary before Jeff does this. It is evident learning loss has occurred in probably 90% of these. Now there's some that are greater than others, and there's 1 or 2 that there's not a lot of learning loss. But it's evident that we were not able to do what we can do because kids weren't here. And I'll let it at that, and then I'll come back to, though, a whole other perspective I think that is important that we cannot lose in this. So, Jeff, go ahead. If you don't mind, don't go too fast. We'll go about it.
Would you explain the colors?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Boyle. I'm sorry. Green is good. Yellow is that in between. Red meaning that's our most intensive learners. That's where the data is showing us these kids are really, in need, the percentage based on a grade level. So this is DIBELS. So inside of K to 2, the key data points are iReady Math is a big piece of how we look at it diagnostically, and then DIBELS. We're much more into DIBELS diagnostic than we are into iReady at the K to 2 level. And just a quick reminder, what is DIBELS? Dynamic Indicator of Basic Early Literacy Skills. So I'll pause. This now goes into LV. So again, you can see a little bit of learning loss. This is iReady Math for LV. Jeff, keep going if you don't mind. LV reading is iReady. So again, there's a data piece that shows some things. Yeah, third grade was okay. This slide here talks about DPS. It jumps back a second at DPS, and it's overall. That shows you all of in iReady. It's a report we could pull. So I like this slide because it shows you. See the tier 1 green, okay, and then how it's dropped into, and that's for all kids taking iReady at the K1 and 2 level. Next slide's going to be for Liberty Valley. I'm sorry, DPS reading. I apologize. And then Jeff, continue to the next one. There's LV Matt. So they're visuals. They're giving us that data point of what we know, but it's the reality of what it is. Go ahead, Jeff. So then we go into DMS a little bit. One of the things there, and Jess and Dave and I are talking about is, there's some drops, that 8th grade drop. We knew that. We knew there was some major things going on there. Some of that is some curriculum changes that we're working through. We go to DMS reading. There's that overarching, all of math there. That's all 6, 7, and 8 when you combine all students. Okay, Jeff? Mr. Snover had put this data a little bit together, and I pulled this and I wanted to include it. Just talks about when you get into the middle and high school, right? You're talking about failures. How many kids are failing? What are our concerns there? I think what was interesting on the failure part of it, and if Mr. Snover and or Mr. Wynn want to comment on this, is I think we've started to see at this point that, yes, in certain areas, we're seeing a little bit more with failures, but it's starting to level off. I think we're seeing that from where it was to where we are, we're not seeing as many failures as we thought. Part of that is we've been able to get all the kids back, and we've been able to do a lot. I mean, I've had middle school teachers say that to me. We've been able to make up ground, and within the high school as well. So I think another piece is a lot of more of our secondary kids did a little bit better with online learning than a little bit more comfortable with that. So we're working through that data piece. But again, it's evident that learning loss has occurred in all of this. Okay, before we move that, I think everybody looks at that, and even I did. When you look at it, you're like, wow, oof, these poor kids. And I agree. I had the opportunity this morning to be on a call with 199, I think was on when I looked at it, other educators from Pennsylvania and Virginia. It was unbelievable when I was listening to what's going on in other schools, in urban areas. What we have been able to do is unbelievable. When I was able to talk about the fact that our kids are in school, that since January we've had as many kids that want to be back, it's unheard of. Every single person I was in a small group with of 6 was sitting at home still as educators, all of them. The people who were doing the conference were sitting at home. They weren't in schools. Like the idea of kids being there and what they're doing. So I can only imagine what their data looks like. And I know while we look at some of that data and we go, wow, there's drops. The incredible work our teachers have done to keep kids at a pretty head above water level, the majority of kids, is incredible. I mean, Emily and Sonia are sitting here, 2 of our great teachers, and there are so many others that have timeless effort in what they're doing. So while you look at that data, and if you go back and you look at it and you go, wow, yeah, there's drops, don't lose sight of the fact that our teachers did a phenomenal job of keeping kids moving forward. May not have been the best because it's been tough for everybody. But it's been pretty incredible. And then to listen to where other districts are and what we've been able to do, what you've supported, and what our team's been able to do, and what our families and students have been able to support is incredible. It really is. Compared, when you look at that comparison, it's almost unbelievable. My eyes were open this morning on what is going really on in schools outside of small rural Pennsylvania where we all are.
Dr. Pickard, real quick on that. That's really intriguing. That reference point you used about the conference call was Pennsylvania schools?
It was Pennsylvania and Virginia schools.
Pennsylvania and Virginia schools.
The CSIU sits on a PAIU committee where it's all the IUs in the state, and we are literally the only IU that has had all the districts have students in person this year. The other IUs are like confounded, like how have our school districts done it in this region? It's extremely impressive what our little region has done compared to what other areas have done.
Wow. And one thing I want to do comment, because you made reference to it, is while that was all K-8 data, in the past few days, high school teachers, I think, have approached Mr. Wynn. They've approached me with some more creative ways beyond just credit recovery. Because here's the truth. While we may use a little bit of iReady and/or some other diagnostics inside a summer school program to get some data, I'm not supportive of summer school that is virtual learning. We need kids in person, doing activities, being with us. Yeah, if it means we're using a Google Classroom or doing something a little bit with some of the academics, sure. But this is not our learning loss and what we want to fund. I want to put our teachers in front of kids, as many as that are interested, to do things, to engage them, to give parents quality, high quality, not just here's a program. So I think that's a key part of this. I'll end with that last one. Dr. Boyle, is there anything else you want to add on this slide?
I just want people to know that what our plan is from here is we're going to look at combining engaging academic content with the social emotional learning and the physical education or the physical activities. We're looking at field trips. Some of them may be virtual. I just got the thing from the Capitol today that we can do some things with that in the summer. Working with the various partners wherever we can find them to bring more in to students. Course extensions at the high school that's been discussed with Mr. Wynn. Creating the camps that combine fun and cooperation, teamwork, learning how to be kids together again, because we've kept them so far apart from one another. It's something that really important to me is that we let kids be kids. And the other piece that is critical, as Dr. Pickard said, I want Danville teachers with Danville kids because they're the ones that know them best and love them best.
So as we move forward, so summer school into next year, I'll put 3 words in front of you that I shared with Dr. Boyle this morning as part of that conference I was in this morning: recover, refresh, reset. I think those are fantastic words. They're positive words. They're moving forward words for schools and what they're doing. So for this conference this morning was on curriculum. So the lady that was leading it is one of the probably most well-known curriculum mapping person, Heidi Hayes Jacobs. She was literally leading it. It's pretty neat in virtual learning how that can happen. you have one of the leading experts saying our curriculums are oversaturated. Think about that word, right? She is a leading guru in this, has studied it for her life, and she is telling us our curriculums are oversaturated. And while COVID is horrible, it's given us a reason to recover. What are we going to do? How do we refresh this? What are we going to reset in the future and do things differently? So I think as we come to you moving forward, Dr. Boyle said, we're going to talk about what does our cyber options look like in the future? How do we make that happen? What does our high school look like in the future for all kids? And then how does that impact our curriculum moving forward? So
Dr.
I
Pickard,
like those words as we move forward.
You just said another intriguing thing. You said this expert has critiqued and said our curriculums are saturated in the context of
In the
what?
context of everything we are asking kids to do. So when we
Like,
start,
like in what framework? The United States?
Yeah. Oh,
Pennsylvania?
yeah, yeah.
Like our
Yeah.
country is
our country. Yes, we've made them so over detailed and made teachers have to write so many, so wordy is the way I would describe it. We love to add things that we just need to reset ourselves. And summer school is a great example of that, because what are we going to do? We're going to focus on what we think are the most essential skills. Okay, but that needs to move forward into all of our curriculum. What is most essential? What do we want from our kids? And how do we make sure social emotional learning is part of it? We can do it.
Right. This brings me back to a presentation you made when we were in the auditorium about the holistic approach that we take here. We're looking at it more than just good test takers, more than just check the box and we did these things. It's looking at the health and well-being of the individual as a whole, and not everybody's built the same way. So I think that's also a healthy approach.
Any questions? Comments? Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Dr. Boyle.
Yes.
It's Jen Gursky. First of all, every administrator and every teacher in our district is doing a fantastic job, and they've worked through a really difficult situation. The one thing I've heard from the community and from parents who've contacted me around learning loss is the concern that children who may not have elected to be out of school suffered academically and suffered some of these learning losses. I think it's great that we have a lot of kids that want to be in summer programming and a lot of parents that want to have their children there. I think it's fantastic that we're not putting them online this summer and that we are going to give them the teacher interactions that they needed this year that they may not have had the opportunity to have. But my question is really geared towards the 6 to 12 realm. And I don't know if it would be for you or for Dr. Bickhart, but for children who really lost a large part of their school year, what are we doing to avoid having to send them to summer school? I know children need a break in many situations and in many households, and I know that recovering credit, if they're losing it, whether they're seniors or if they're not seniors, and maybe they're 8th graders advancing to 9th grade, or struggling 6th graders, how are we starting to recover those skills so that they don't have to spend their whole summer suffering from a situation that they didn't choose and not having that face-to-face time with their children? If we haven't thought about that yet, I just want to put that on the table. But if we have, I want to hear a little bit more about how we're using this point forward till the end of the year to try to avoid having children be in summer school that don't necessarily feel that that's the best choice for them or their family.
Thanks, Dr. Gursky. So I know at the middle school, and Mr. Snow, if there's anything you want to add, I know in their RTI groups and their, those opportunities, they are really the teachers. That's what and actually the teachers have said that to me. Inside our courses, we are taking the time to make sure we are getting kids to where they need to be. It was one of the 6th grade, I think it was Mrs. Lear the one time I saw her down in 6th grade science, and she gave me a great example of, now that I have these kids, and Mr. Schifflin, 7th grade, as I'm thinking about this, now that I have them back, I'm able to work with them. I'm able to spend that time to limit how many kids are really failing. So I feel like just them being back has been a huge help. The creative thing I think at the high school that was brought to us that we have to work through was, and I think it was discussed in their leads meeting, is the creative way of taking what is a course key content, what do they think the most essential pieces are, and how do you identify what those pieces of work are? And can we create times for kids that come in? identify what those assignments are that would say, this is what you need to do to show you've got to the point to pass the course. Okay, not that you have 100%, but you've done what you need to do to get to a passing point. So the question is, can we think about that? I think it's an interesting prospect, because it's not about bringing them in for 4 weeks. It's about taking a high school kid and saying, here's the course, here's the material we need you to do, come in, work with our teachers, and move forward. That's when you say, Dr. Gursky, about what's being discussed, that's an option that's out there. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed, because we've got to see if it works, but I think I think the message I got there is there's creative things inside of our middle and high school that are being discussed that we can, embark on and look at where these kids are, and how many failures there are to make sure it's not their entire summer.
I appreciate that. And I would certainly say that I would support looking at ways to have children not have to spend the 4 weeks, like you're saying. It's not a punitive thing. We're really at making sure that they're learning. And a lot of the curriculum kind of builds on each other. And if they don't have skills now, spending another month and a half learning skills based on gaps that they have, they may not be successful in. And so I really want to see these children have the best opportunity to get those skills, and attend the camps if that's appropriate for them, but not to have an overwhelming number of kids in a situation where they've got to spend their summer relearning things when they didn't choose to be out of school to begin with.
And I think the one thing I would say to the board for all levels, K to 12, when it comes to all of this program, 2 things matter: staffing and enrollment. How many kids are really interested? How many do we really need? And then how does staffing fit that need? Now, I think what's nice is we've had a lot of staff come to us and say, we want to be involved. Let's see how this works out. But we've got to be creative in what we're trying to do and some new opportunities. So I think hopefully we can move forward and we can begin actually putting some of these plans to action and be able to come back to you with, this is how it's going to look at each level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Eye-opening. Any other questions, comments? Nope. All right, so move on. Next part of the agenda is the consent agenda items. We have a series of them. I will, for the record, recite them. Take action, approve the following consent agenda items: 8.1, 8.2, 12.1 through 12.4, 13.1 through 13.9. Do I have a motion to approve those as a bundle, or do we want to pull any out and talk about them separately? I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve them as a bundle.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. So with that said, voice?
Roll call.
Roll call, excuse me. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, moving on to items 8.3 and 8.4. I recommend we'll just do them separately. So let's do it that way. So the board will do 8.3, which is our coaches. We'll take action to approve the following coaches for the spring 2021 season, pending the receipt of all clearances and paperwork. The stipend, if applicable, will be paid at the end of the season, consistent with the 2020 to 2021 budget. And those individuals are Roger Legg, head boys tennis coach, Zach Zerby, our volunteer assistant baseball coach, and Gary Prawl, the volunteer assistant boys lacrosse coach. So the board will entertain a motion to approve item 8.3 as presented.
A motion to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Katachu. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Reichert. Okay, so
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Item 8.4, the Ecuadorian trip. The board will take action to allow the
We've
high
got-
school. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no.
Let him introduce it.
Yeah, that,
We just want to inform you about safety.
that's fine. Understood.
You should be on.
There we go. Yeah, so we came to you guys back in 2019. It might be a completely different board, but I think some of you might recognize us. And we presented a trip, kind of an opportunity for students to get out of central Pennsylvania. We love it here, but we also know that there's more to our world than just rural Pennsylvania. So we found a trip through a tour company. This will be our third year going. We took kids to Costa Rica in 2017. And then Switzerland and Italy in 2018. We took a year off in 2019 and we came to you asking for your approval for us to take kids to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands. And that was currently scheduled for June of 2020. And obviously COVID and the crazy road that we're on has led us to the point where we have about 20 students that are still hanging on. And our tour company came to us on April 6th and said, we're ready to send you if you're still interested. And here's all of the safety precautions and everything that goes into that. So that's kind of where we're at, and we'll let you know what's up.
So yeah, I was contacted by EF, and they said that they were sending students to 3 selected countries in South America. Belize, Costa Rica, and Ecuador, and the Galapagos is recently open for tourists with all safety measures in place. For example, pre and COVID testing, and obviously we have to do a COVID test prior to return. Private ferry, private buses, a single tour guide who's been tested with us the entire tour, and masking in public places. But all the activities that we're going to do are set in place because we were going to tell the parents, hey, it's probably more financially beneficial to you if you take the refund, because they do lose some money if they decide to take the refund. But now all the activities, except for one, like whitewater rafting, but all the other activities like snorkeling are in place. So we went to our parents. We had a Zoom meeting yesterday, and out of 21, I think so far, 19 are still on, with the possibility of 3 might still cancel. So we're looking anywhere between 14 and 18 students that are still going to stay on.
The students have already paid for this trip, and it is at no cost to the district. You guys don't have to put money into anything. It's not going to influence any of your ESSERs or anything like that. So it's one of those things that it's kind of already taken care of on that end. We just would like your blessing to be able to take these kids internationally, knowing that there are safety protocols in place, and we're giving them a chance of a lifetime, really, to be able to get out of here and see some other parts of the world, experience how other people live, kind of get outside of yourself just a little bit and be kind of kids. Go see something new.
They learn so much about themselves. This is a part not only that supports our science standards for conservation ecology, but also they learn so much about themselves, how to deal with people, how to be self-sufficient on the trip. So this is one of the reasons that Emily and we're passionate about travel, but our students have become passionate. We've taken them all over the U.S. and now internationally.
You'd be surprised how many kids don't remember to like pack clean socks and then come to you like 4 days in and I don't have socks. What do I do? And so some of those things that you don't have a mom or dad running after you. I know our parents in this community really love and support our kids, but sometimes it's a little much. And so this is a really great opportunity for them to grow and really see what they're made of. It gives them a lot of confidence coming back to really tackle a lot of things. So this is something we're really passionate about. We would like approval to do this trip, and then would hopefully be coming to you again in another year or two with another travel opportunity, something that we really, really believe in.
Included in your packets, you have the safety, an agreement that students have to sign, but also the some information about the safety protocols that we have to follow. So I hope that's available, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us.
Yeah, I have a question. Have we had any discussion with the CDC about recommendations for travel at all?
Once they open, they're able to travel.
There are only a few places that are open. Now, EF has canceled most of their trips except for these 3 places.
Yeah, because there's areas that are now back on a surge. So I just was curious what
So-
kind of higher level input we've received about safety.
I can speak a little bit to Ecuador. We've done the research since EF contacted us, and they are really focusing on vaccinations in the Galapagos Islands, primarily because those are isolated communities that they're really able to hit that herd immunity pretty quickly. Ecuador itself only has about 3% of its population vaccinated currently, but they're working on that. It's something that their country is investing in. They had a pretty, I would say, major, I mean, compared to where we're at, they had more of an outbreak back in the fall. And that's really kind of died down here, which is why they're easing up on a lot of their restrictions.
I have a question too. Recently, there was a minor uproar about this trip to Texas. You know, and I'm sure we've all heard about that. And one of the biggest elements in the discussion was, you know, was this a school sanctioned trip versus not school sanctioned trip? And, you know, there was a counterexample of yet another group of, you know, kids in the same activity that did a non-school sanctioned. So would this be considered school sanctioned, you know, from a liability standpoint? Would this be considered, you know, so can you expound on that a little bit?
Dr. Uasa, the EF, we go through the company EF, and even though we try to give you all the safety measures and we ask for your blessing, it is nice to have the school board approval so we can use our facilities for meetings. But EF is fully insured. These kids in the packet, the COVID care promise, if we had to quarantine, they pay for everything there, our hotels, our fees. And they would not send us in a place, I mean, they're a big business and they would not send us a place where they didn't feel, I mean, there's always risks in travel in general, but I feel like if they open this up, they have, and our students have insurance on top of the COVID care. We make them buy the insurance for anything that would happen on the trip.
Or liability.
Yes, no monetary liability for the district.
Are you going to require all travelers to be vaccinated then?
We can't, not for anything.
PCR test 3 days prior to departure. And so if Sonia on that, she would get a full refund. That's part of EF's guarantee to us that the family doesn't lose the money because of a positive COVID test, but they are requiring a negative test to not only go on the trip, but then also a negative test to come back home. And that's something that EF is helping us coordinate in Ecuador to get a negative antigen test on the way home.
And Dr. Uasa, although students from Danville went on the trip to Texas, it had nothing to do with our school district. It was a cheerleading group that was outside of the district that went. So we had no pre-knowledge even of them going and had no involvement there. With this, we're again allowing the students to meet, allowing the teachers to go and take the students on this trip. And we're, you know, giving them our blessing as opposed to making it a school trip.
I think there's another element to consider here, that reference point too, which was kind of accentuated, I think unfairly, because all the facts weren't on the table. You're talking about a trip in the summertime. School's not in session. These folks go, they're signing up, they know what they're getting into, they've done their homework, they're following guidelines, they're going to sign off on waivers, all those particulars. But when they get back, they're going back to school home. So, like, I'm not discounting any of that, like, you know, the health and well-being part, but the realistic part is you're not going to have folks integrating in the same conditions you might in the middle of a school year too.
So that is a question though. Are they going to be allowed? Are any of these kids part of the summer school program?
Well, again,
That's a decision they have, you know, they have to take into account even with their other schooling. Some of them are college students that they're allowing just for this year to come back on our trip, but we have a couple of those as well. They have to take that into account.
And the reality is they'll have had a COVID test before they come back. So if it were positive, we would do the same protocols we do now, and they wouldn't be included.
There are always, I mean, this is much harder traveling now than it used to be. It's always hard traveling, but we do recognize that. We're just wanting to offer these kids who've paid for the trip an opportunity not to lose some money and the experience, of course.
How many chaperones?
That
1-to-6 ratio.
So we're looking at Mr. Johns, myself, and Emily, not in that order, but depending on how many people stay. So
I'm guaranteeing at least 2 chaperones. We don't feel that it's safe to run on just 1 chaperone with 10 kids,
Right.
or anything like that. So a minimum of 12 kids would have to stay on, and we're hoping for the 18 to be able to take 3 chaperones. Right now, I think we said like 19, 20 is where we're at. So we're right around that line between 2 and 3 chaperones.
And the range of the kids are
They're 10th through college freshmen. So 10th through senior from last year, 9th through senior, end of 9th grade and senior year. But because it got pushed back, we have, I think, 3 kiddos that graduated last year that would be coming back on the trip. And beyond the EF COVID safety stuff, we make them sign waivers about we're not going to do alcohol or anything like that, drugs, vapes, all of that kind of stuff. We recognize that Ecuador's drinking age is 18. I don't care if you're 18. We don't drink, you're not drinking. So we have those kind of protocols in place that we've done on all of our other trips as well, that just because kids graduated, we're still holding them to that.
Okay. Anybody else? Thoughts, comments? Before we...
It's Jen Gursky. Can I say something, Mr. Huron?
Absolutely. Please do.
So I am a huge proponent of children having authentic experiences for learning and also taking field trips. I'm sitting here with mixed feelings about this trip as a community member, as a parent, as a board member. Dr. Boyle, I guess this question is for you. I'm not sure when Dr. Yuasa mentioned whether or not this is a school-sponsored, a school-supported, a school-endorsed trip, and what that means for us. And also thinking through if we have other clubs and activities that are allowed to take trips at all that we're supporting. Can you kind of put that into perspective for me again? I'm not sure that I fully can wrap my head around this. And I don't know that I'm prepared to vote on it tonight, but I do feel like I don't have a clear understanding around if we are supporting this trip, what that really means for us and where we sit as a district on children taking trips currently and in the summer right now at all. What our practice is with that right now.
Well, we haven't had a practice with it since COVID hit. So that's why we're bringing it back to the table for you guys to consider. It was already approved as a trip. This is something the district has done in the past. It is basically they're receiving an approval. It is not school sanctioned. It is not a school trip. It is 2 school teachers that are taking school students, running it by the board so that we're perfectly aware of what is happening, and that we also have allowed them to use our facilities to meet with parents, to use our copiers to do paper, that kind of thing. So it is a school approved trip, but it is not a school event.
Have our solicitors and insurance people looked at this very recently and given us some scenarios or just the liability component around this?
Not in this trip particularly. That it had happened in the past, but not on this trip particularly.
So what do you mean by liability? Because they describe that everything is completely covered.
Correct.
It's got nothing to do with the schools.
The contract, and I've been on these trips myself previously, the contract that you have with the travel agency or the travel group, they cover all those things. And what they do is they have the liability. It's the parent's signature and the parent's approval that allow the students to go on these trips. It's beyond us in that way. It has to be a parent approved thing. So the liability is there. There is insurances, and things are covered. I don't know if Jennifer Dambeck from Carl's office has any comments.
Sure. I was just waiting so I could break in here. I took a look over the COVID-19 Safe Traveler Agreement, and as compared to other school-sponsored events, here the requirements are very clear that individuals have to do the pre-testing. They're agreeing to follow all local, state, federal guidelines during the trip to quarantine, so that they're taking all reasonable efforts as compared to, potentially other events where they're going, across state lines where they're not mandated to do pre-COVID, testing before going on the trip, when returning, particularly if there are comprehensive waivers saying that students understand that by going to another area, they're increasing their risk, and that there is waiver of liability for the school district. There's more protection there, obviously, for the district, knowing that, reasonable precautions above and beyond what standard school sponsored events would entail. For example, prom and whatnot, not requiring, proof of COVID testing and whatnot. But, to that extent, it seems like the bases are covered. We can always provide additional waivers that the students would need to execute, so that it could spell out in more clear language that, hey, district, the parents won't, they'll waive liability, or the students will waive liability and release the district to that end, particularly knowing that it's an ongoing development to see, in case COVID rates change and it's more dangerous situation, to then travel internationally. So we can always provide that in addition, so that that can be incorporated along with the documents.
Thank you.
I just want to add, when I am doing the general liability for the school district, I'm asked if any students are traveling outside the country. And this trip was approved prior to doing the last general liability renewal. And I did include it. Not that we would be covered, just not that they don't have coverage. I just included it in our general liability as well on top of that. So I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
So viability, legal support says if it wasn't, it sounds like to me what my summary from the discussion is, we've got the practice and protocols by the function of the trip itself, which is found in legalness. Our solicitors supporting that and has done the due diligence. We're covered. We've got parents signing off. We've got them accepting responsibility. I guess, is there anything else that we feel why we wouldn't want to consider like doing this? I guess I'm just being that bold.
Confused about a lot of things in these conversations. This is a time frame the school's not in. How can you tell me where to go when the school's not in? Who to go with? That's my concern.
I was thinking along those same lines. I mean, it sound like that we're creating some yeah.
I appreciate all that.
I think
all this concern's getting to me. I don't understand it. If I want to go away in June, you're not stopping me. That's my concern.
Good point.
Give it to Daryl to put it to the.
No, it's a great point.
It is a great point, Daryl.
I agree with that. And forgive me, I just don't remember. Are we approving field trips for students that are here?
We have been, more recently, we had one go out today. So yes, we have started to do those as well.
Okay.
All right. And that's part of what we're looking for summer as well, is to do some field trips that they've missed so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Good presentation. But I think Daryl just put that elephant right in the center of the room, as they say. Like, so, I mean, we could certainly take a motion, but I don't know how we could interfere with something that's been this well vetted, and that the parents of students who are doing it in off-school hours, maybe supported by our chaperones. How could we weigh in on that in good conscience, say no?
Can we remove it as a voting item and just make it as an informational item?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do so.
All right,
Okay, so
well,
I
that-
make a motion to remove it as a voting item and make it an informational item.
Okay. Want to do? Let's just do voice call then, or roll call. Excuse me. Right? Or, no voice. All right. Let's do voice. That suffice for people with more expertise than me.
I think so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because if not, we'll have a further discussion.
Yep.
All right. So there's a motion on the table to move item 8.4, which is the Ecuadorian trip, to an informational item. Do I have a motion to approve? Yes.
I made the motion.
Okay.
Daryl
All right.
seconded.
Daryl second that motion. Woo.
All in favor?
Music through my head.
It's getting late.
All in
Chris.
I know.
favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful trip. Look forward to the pictures. Okay.
ELA curriculum. Keep going.
How many timeouts do I have left?
None.
Coach, how many timeouts do I have left?
None.
None?
Keep moving.
Hurry up,
Let's
Chris.
go.
Keep going. All right. Where are we?
9-1.
9-1. Okay. Board will take action to approve the quote of $108,068.27 from Savas Learning Company for My Perspectives ELA curriculum materials for grades 6 through 9 as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make the motion.
I second.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, sure.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know this is in our budget for the next year, school year, but we have to approve it separately because we need to get the quote and purchase order out before the budget's approved.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Okay. So, voice?
This is
Oh, money. No, roll call. Yep.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. So now we are on. I'll go through all this. Okay.
Okay, Singer.
Yeah. Thank you. Item 10.1, Geisinger Appreciation Project. The students have donated / collected 3,366 snack items, enough to fill 66 buckets. The donations were delivered to Geisinger by a few students and staff on Wednesday, April 6th. Okay, so just for the record. Danville Business Alliance. Ricky?
Yes, I have now been approved as a member of the Danville Business Alliance. We had a meeting last week to just talk about what the things that are happening around, and I'll be starting to bring back reports from that group and also giving them reports as far as what's happening in the district. So it was very nice to be welcomed, and I think I'm going to enjoy that very much.
That's great. More things. You don't have enough to do. You need a couple more things in your free time.
I can't be bored.
Oh, wait, was my mic on? Sorry. All right. I don't want to belabor this. 11.1, the 2021 cash receipts. That's the report. Okay. So then we have item 11.2, take action to approve bills for payment for March 5th, 2021 through April 7th of 2021 as presented in the documentation. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second. Thank you, Doctor. Roll call, please. Terry?
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Stay.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Abstain.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
Motion carries. Excuse me. Okay. Items 11.3 to 11.5. Do I have a motion to group those as one?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Doctor. Roll call, please, Terry. Items 11.3 to 11.5.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 12. 12.5. Boy, I'm having a tough time tonight. Item 12.5 and 12.6. Do I have a motion to group those as one for voting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank
Second.
you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Again, roll call, please.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 12.7, ESSERS 3 funding, memorandum of understanding. The board will take action to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Danville Area School District and the Danville Area Education Association for ESSERS 3 funding as presented with an hourly rate of $40 an hour. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Reichert. Do
I will
have a
second.
Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. May I have a roll call for that one too, please, Terry?
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. So we move on to items 13.10 through 13.11. We have a motion to vote on those together.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, thank you. Again, a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fish was first, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Katachu. Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Huron, or Mr.
Whoa.
Huron.
Yes.
It's getting late.
One of the better things I've been called in a while, believe me. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item 15, any board concerns or anything for the next meeting agenda from the board? Going once, twice? No? Okay, thank you. Second public comment period, open up for any comment. Again, I look in the room. I don't see anybody waving their hand at me. I'll open it up to folks out there in virtual land. Any public comments?
No public comment at this time.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, then we have item 17. Do I have a motion for me to use this
I'll make a
device
motion.
for adjourn?
I second.
All right. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, sincerely.